Hello and welcome to another edition of Convict Inc. with Robert and Steve. If you like this channel, please subscribe to it. If you like this video, please push like and share it with your family, friends, neighbors, enemies, etc.
And if you don't like it, push it anyway.
All right, so look, this video is going to be focusing on the parole system. Now, the Federal Bureau of Prisons did away with parole many years ago. There are still some people in the system under the old law and the old new and old, it's all crazy, that have parole. So this will end up going into Arkansas Department of Corrections more so, but this can also apply to state prisons around the country that have the parole system, because it's all about the same. I'm sure there's differences. I'm sure there's some, maybe even some big differences, but we're just going to get down to a few things. First of all, well, let's just go into Arkansas. When I was doing time in Arkansas, I think it was 1994, I was at Calico Rock. I was a library clerk, and there was a guy that worked with me, another clerk by the name of William Bayless. Bayless, I want to say, is from Baxter County, Arkansas. It's up north. He had a case where it was drinking and driving and accidentally killed somebody. I realize that's a bad crime. Maybe the amount of time I'm going to say doesn't set well with people, but he got 6 years. In an identical case, a month later or thereabout, another guy, same exact thing happened. He got 6 years as well. Both guys ended up in Calico Rock. William Bayless was, I don't even know, maybe he had a parking ticket, did a little drugs in his lifetime, liked to drink, and he played in a band, I do believe. I remember he was married to a woman that was deaf. They may have had a fight that night. I forgot how the story went. Anyway, they go up for parole on a 6-year sentence. I think that was a class, what would that be, a class C or D? Or?
Well, it would depend. It wouldn't depend on the time. It would depend on the crime.
Okay, so they got 6 years, both of them.
Yeah, that would be probably class C or D.
Yeah, right?
Felony.
Okay, in Arkansas, there's different felonies.
Right.
A, C, Y. Y's the worst.
Y's the worst.
Right. Okay, so they both go up for parole at the same time. William Bayless gets denied parole, and this guy is the picture model inmate. You put model inmate, just have a big picture of William Bayless. No bullshit. The guy who, the same situation, same crime, he stayed in trouble. He went to the hole like 2 or 3 times at Calico Rock that I know of. They gave him parole. They gave this guy parole. So, how does it work? What happens? So the theory amongst prisoners is that a person that does well is less likely to come back to prison, and a person who fucks up is more likely to come back. Right? That's the general consensus.
That's the general.
And I even bought into that too. You do not?
I do.
Oh, you do.
It's
okay.
That's the rule of thumb.
Yeah.
That's the rule of thumb.
Yeah, and it's. So, I mean, it's like, okay, we know this guy's going to come back. Let him go out and get a little furlough, a little rec time on the street, because he's going to come back anyway, and possibly with a whole new bunch of new crimes, right?
Yes.
It shows how biased and unfair that whole thing really is. Now, you know a lot more about parole than I do. You have more insight on it.
This is the problem. Things should be based, in a perfect world, things should be based on your merits, on your past, and on your future. We don't live in a perfect world. There is no right when it comes to the parole board. The parole board is a totalitarian government, you might as well say, within itself. Because just because a judge sentences you to 10 years in prison, when he sentences you to that 10 years in prison, he don't tell you, well, you're going to do 4 years and 3 months, and then you'll see the parole board, and then they'll determine what. They just say, I sentence you to, like in my case, I sentence you to 40 years in the Department of Corrections. Well, then you say, oh my God. Okay, when you see the parole board's looking for certain things from you in this state. This
is very important because I think this applies to other states as well.
Yes, I'm sure it will.
Yeah,
most.
go ahead. Yeah.
In this state, remember this. First of all, you accept responsibility for what you did. 2, not only do you accept responsibility for what you did, but what have you done to change your behavior since you did that? And 3, if you've done those first 2 things, do you have any remorse? Remorse is probably the biggest. They want you to know that you're sorry for what you did. That this is not the norm. That this is not going to be the...
Right, and when exactly did that change occur to you? When did you start feeling sorry? When did you realize that you wanted to better yourself or whatever? Because that's also important. Did it happen when you got sentenced?
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. When I first got sentenced, when I first went to Cummins, I had a PE date of 1985. In other words, in 1985, I was supposed to see the parole board.
Oh, really?
Yes.
On 40?
On 40.
So you can go up in 5?
I was supposed to go up and do after doing 80 months, which
Wow.
is basically 5 years.
Yeah, laws have changed.
Now, here was the problem, though. There were some laws that were in effect in that time that said if you have 1 Y felony, you do 1/4 your time. If you got 2 felonies, you do half your time.
Okay.
If you got 3, you do 3/4. If you got 4, you do it all. Okay. Now, that sounds kind of hard pitched, but here's the deal. It doesn't say number of times you went to prison. It said 1 commitment, you're going to do 1/4 of your time. 2 commitments, you do half. 3 commitments. Now, when you go to court and you get time, what do you get?
You can get consecutive or concurrent sentences.
You get commitment papers.
Oh, yeah, judgment and commit. Yes.
Judgment and commitment
Yes.
orders.
Yeah.
So what happens is Steve isn't playing any sillies. He's steadily going back to court, getting time because of these robberies, right? Steve's getting time from Sebastian County, Crawford County,
Multiple.
Pulaski County.
Yeah.
So that every time I go back and I get these papers, it's a commitment.
I got it.
So my date changed clean from 1985 to 2020.
That sucks. Yeah.
I'm like, what? I'm like, no. Now I've given up hope because you done, and I'm telling these people, you done figured this wrong. Here's my old time card. See what it says? No, you didn't figure this right because here's what you don't know. And they took me up to the records office and read me the whole paper so that I could see, that I was wrong and that I was fixing to have to do all this time. So yeah, I didn't have, but then I started seeing how these guys that acted like they had some sense and these guys that worked within the system, how easy they had it, how good they had it.
Yeah.
And it's easier to swim downstream than it is upstream.
Yeah. And, and that's maybe a broader point on a lot of things. Matter of fact, I have my friend Brent, who runs Saving Children and Reviving Souls, said we're not trying to destroy the system. We're trying to work within the system and have change.
That's it.
So that applies to prison stuff too. And there's a bigger point to be made here. A lot of guys that go to prison with life with parole, life without parole, big number of years. Once upon a time, so in Arkansas, for example, you get 40 years, you get sentenced to 40 years. I'm going back to the early 90s. You get sentenced to 40 years and you can be out in like 10 or 12. So that big number sometimes, it's like an illusion, right?
Unless you got a Y felony for a crime of violence.
Yeah. And also, but nowadays we've been conditioned more, even as our society as Americans, that it's like almost we want these big numbers, even prisoners. So back in the day, I'm going to give an example. So if I go off track, let me say, when I was in when I was a kid, 19, I got busted. I went to California, LA County jail system. I remember going to court, and there was dudes, Mexican guy, completely blasted. I don't know what kind of gang he was in. You know, they gave him like 8 years. He was going to do 4. That was a long time. Like doing 4 years, dude had tears in his eyes. So actually getting sentenced and do 4 was like a long time. 10-year sentence, you're going to do 5. A lot of dudes were getting murder charges 10 years and they're only going to do 5. That was like 5 years was like a long time. Now, if you go to the feds and you get anything under 10, it's called a county jail sentence. So we're conditioned to do a lot more time. And here's my point. When you get a lot of time like that, what your mind says is, fuck this. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do what I want.
Exactly.
I got life without parole, and I went in there and I did. I literally, there was a day when I was walking to the law library. Now, I told everybody I did dope 15 minutes after I got in. That was true. But a day or two later, I was walking to the law library, and there was the proverbial path in the road fork. This was a literal. I can go this way and go to the bathroom where I can cop some heroin, or I can go that way where this dude's waiting for me that's a badass jailhouse lawyer that's going to help me with my case. I took the dope route. And there I stayed for 10 years on the dope route. And I mean dope, drugs and dope, being a dope idiot. So when somebody gets sentenced like that, if you know people in prison, right, that just got sentenced to big time or that have been doing a bunch of big time that don't have hope, they're acting like knuckleheads, they're really fucking up their lives. It should be the total opposite. If you get a boatload of time like that, you should get your ass in prison, and you should get down and do everything that the system requires and work outside of the system to better yourself. If the system cannot provide you with the rehabilitation you need, take it on your own initiative. That's where I screwed up. I'm very fortunate to be out right now. There's guys that had life sentences that deserve it way more than I ever did. And I've got some little bit of guilty feelings about that, but that's a different issue. The point is I don't care if you got life without parole for murder. You should never give up.
No.
You should never stop trying to rehabilitate and better yourself. And especially when it comes to parole, and we'll bring it back around. Again, I know there's some guys that are innocent. We'll talk about the Memphis 3 guys. So imagine if they had to go up for parole and they had to show remorse and they had to say they're guilty. No, how do you do that? You know, so there's things you have to kind of figure out within yourself. But if you are guilty and you did it, and you know people that are going up for parole, you better tell them right now to start changing their ways and have the answers that he just talked about. There's that 3-prong criteria. Yeah. Admit you did it. They want to know that you're sorry. They want to know that you've changed. I think they want to know how you changed.
Well, they'll ask you, what have you done?
Yeah,
to change.
Yeah. So, and I'll say this: if they've got bullshit courses in prison, this is a leap and might be wrong. This is what happened with me in my case, in my compassionate release. I had one chance when I was in Butner 1 to really go about the education. Butner 1, that prison, had a really great educational system. You could have got bachelor's degrees and associates and then bachelor's, I believe. But they did away with the funding. But I had an opportunity to really educate myself, do college courses, and I didn't take advantage. After that, all the other classes, and I'm not trying to put down FCI Terre Haute by no means, because this is most of the BOP. The courses were all bullshit. The drug course or the non-residential, there were good tools in that. There were some really good tools you can learn. However, all these other courses that they had were just, it wasn't to rehabilitate yourself. It was to show, it was for the staff or the Bureau of Prisons to be able to show the public, look, we're giving these guys courses. What I did when I filed for my compassionate release, I showed my judge. I said, here, yeah, I can do these little bullshit courses all day. Here's a course. It was a piece of paper. Why is the sun green? Or, like just stupid. The sun's not green, obviously. But it was just to show them, like, look, how much more can I better myself in here? And, I guess if I would have had college course from the outside. But the point being is work within the system because they really don't want you to buck it, but go outside of the system and then be able to show the parole board.
The thing that I think was really my turning point, which I pretty much had it in my head, like I said, about swimming upstream.
Yeah.
That it was easier for me to work within the system to get. But now here's the one thing that really is in this whole situation that's rather unique is when you're working for parole or when you get in prison, the thing that switched me was if you're class 1C, that means that you can go outside the fence, but you have to be under a gun.
It's in Arkansas. Yeah.
Right.
In the ADC. Go ahead.
Now, if you're class 1B, that means that you can be outside the fence, but you don't have to be directly under a gun, but there has to be some free world person there. Then 1A, you don't need any supervision.
All right.
Now, they used to have a thing here in Arkansas it's been done away with now for a while called Red Ribbon Week. I don't know if you've ever... It was every October, and I want to say it was for 2 weeks. And what it was designed for schools where it was about Drug Awareness Week.
Oh, okay.
You know, but they call it Red Ribbon Week.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, the major, when I was at Delta Unit, the major called me in his office one day and he said, "Canis," he says, "if I sent you to schools to talk to kids about crime, drugs, prison, would you try to run off on me?" I said, "No, I wouldn't try to run off. I think it's a good thing, and I think it's
Oh, I do too. I do too."
He says, "Well, I'm going to put you on the inmate panel." He says, "and I want you to go to these schools, and I want you to go," he says, "I'm going to send one white and one black." He sent me with Anthony Webster. And he says, "I want you to go to school and talk to these kids about these situation gangs and this and that," because that's when, early 90s is when the Crips and the Bloods really started infiltrating.
And Little Rock. They hit Little Rock hard.
They were hitting
Crips and Little Rock hard, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, this was all going on at the time too. So the first school I went to was Eudora. And when I go to Eudora, the officers let me out the van, and there's 2 officers in uniform. Both of them have a sidearm.
Mm-hmm.
I turn around again, and they're gone. I'm like, where'd everybody go? So I walk in the school, and there's both them standing there. So they pretty much let me do what I want to do. But I learned at that point, these people have no reason to trust me.
Right.
I just found out that instead of 1985, we're going clean to the 2000s. So I'm like, well, what should we do now? But I realized if they're going to do that and they're still going to trust me, what happens to me if I betray that trust? Oh, yeah. Will I ever get anything else, any kind of shot, any kind of job, any kind of break ever again if I go out there and do the goofy? And you and I both know that it won't happen.
I'm going to tell you something. If they would have took me out of a maximum security prison at the height of my screwing up career, gang days, needle in my arm, I would have went out to that. I would have, without handcuffs, went to one of those schools and talked. For real, I would really get off on something like that. Oh, and could have done an effective job, even stoned out of my brain. I know that's terrible.
Right.
And I would love to do that today, but I'm just not right. And I'll be right with it myself shortly, but I'm going to do that. But I'm telling you, and it also takes really to have rabbit in your blood. And I swear, and I've admitted that before, I just never did. It takes a certain person to just say, okay, I'm going to escape now. And whatever happens, happens, because a lot of bad, I mean, you're going to be on a killing spree, robbing spree. It's whatever. It's game over. Or it's game on. Game on or over, whatever, right. And it's just, and I'm not criticizing people with that mentality. I'm just saying that I never had that in me. I could have drove myself to medical appointments with a life without parole sentence and came back. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Because you find out quick that the risk and reward, if you've got
the chance of making it, especially if you're not going to go kill people and break into the house and shoot them, and I wasn't going to. Yeah. If you're not going to make it,
Yeah,
you're just not going to make it.
You're right, and you have to. The thing about it too is that you can't have a defeatist attitude in prison.
Yeah.
If you have a defeatist attitude in prison, you're defeated.
Yeah.
Believe that.
That's true.
If you have a defeatist attitude, you're already defeated because you're already thinking like a person that's defeated.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I'm going to tell you something. So my big thing, you didn't have the drug problem I always had. The best years of my life, and that includes on the street today, even right now, the best years of my life were from October 2007 until 2011. And that was the years I actually did a long period of clean time. And I told people before that, like, if I would have stayed in that frame of mind and my life would have been going that way, like, I could have done prison no problem with that mentality. I had a really good attitude. I was clean. I was thriving. I started to write. I had a website. I had a lot of people reaching out to me. I met Marta. And I say it goes along with what you just said, because my attitude totally was changed. I no longer was strapped down by prison politics because I was in a different joint. I was not strung out on the drugs, didn't hold me down. I was addicted to writing, which is another addiction, and that's a different issue. But I was thriving, and it goes along with the defeatist attitude, because people, although it sucks being incarcerated, can thrive in prison and do really well. I'm not trying to say that as a prison is a good thing. I'm saying attitude is everything. That's what I'm trying to say.
I've seen a lot of guys that prison has saved their lives.
It did.
You know what I'm saying? It has actually saved their lives, because if something else would have happened, it could have been a whole lot worse.
Sure.
And so by this happening and then understanding and saying, no, I don't want this no more. Like you, one thing I never did, the main way that I did my 40 years and got through it, I never thought about tomorrow. If I looked at something, I would say, well, tonight for supper is Sloppy Joe. Or tonight there's a football game on TV. Or, oh, hey, wait a minute, tonight is the blues hour on the radio. Or I would always look for something right then to look forward to. But I would never look for tomorrow, the next day, or the day after.
That's a great point.
Make all your goals or all your things that you look forward to need to be immediate, short term.
Yeah.
And that way you build up yourself and you can make those goals a little more long term and a little more long term.
Absolutely. That was, I mean, there should be a whole video on that. That is perfect, because I'm not saying this behind Marta's back, I've said this. Falling in love and becoming in a relationship was absolutely horrible. And I don't mean, look, it's worked out great, but my point is, it brought me down. I was depressed a lot. I was always, especially with the ups and downs, I'm gonna get out of prison, life without parole, I'm falling in love with somebody, she leaves her boyfriend for me, just crazy. It was great, but I've spent so many miserable weeks, days, months, harping on it, just depression. And I'm going to tell you, I think it caused me to use a lot on and off. It's so much better. I'm not saying, guys, if you're in relationships or people or girls that just met pen pals with long stints, I'm not saying it can't work. I'm talking about me for myself. It was so much better not having that. It was so much better for me. I was so much in a better frame of mind when I was not in a relationship. Although I don't regret it today. I don't want to make that clear, because right now, I mean, she's a godsend, but it was freaking hard. And she would tell people, she would tell women, she would tell women not to ride it out.
It is hard, because, like I said, I'm involved in a relationship now too, and for 40 years I didn't have one. And I promise you, every time I turn around, I've just gotten used to saying, "I'm sorry, baby, my fault."
Is that a thing?
It is now.
No, dude, you really say that?
Now. Yes.
What's that mean?
It means there's no sense in arguing about it, because you're not gonna win.
Maybe that's where I'm going wrong.
Yeah, you're not gonna win, brother.
Wow.
Forgive him, Marta. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Right, I'm bad at
But
it.
it's,
especially being with somebody that's totally never been in my world, clean, never drank alcohol, never smoked a joint. So it's not about drugs. It's just we're on two different planes, But it's just our whole.
I know what you mean, but now just the opposite of that. the blessing that woman is to you
Oh yeah.
is beyond words.
She saved me from myself.
There you
or,
go.
Or still in the process of trying to save me from
There
myself.
you go. Trying to.
I'll be honest. But anyway.
The thing is, though, is like you say, it's like Rhonda's always telling me. She's saying, I have to teach you everything. And it really made me mad at first when she said that.
Sure.
But then I realized something. For 40 years, I had no contact, intimate contact. And when I say intimate, I'm not meaning sexual. I'm just saying holding hands or kissing, whatever it may be. But I had for 40 years, I didn't have that. So if you take away that 40 years, before then, I was either in the service, which when I was in the service, I was just a horn dog.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But the thing was that I don't have relationship experience, because during the time I was supposed to be having relationship experience, I'd sent my dumb ass to prison.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any of that. So what a woman means by an innuendo, I have no idea about. When women you say, what's wrong, baby? Oh, nothing. It took me almost a year to learn when they say nothing, that's when everything's wrong.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? But I don't have any knowledge of dealing with that. My two biggest regrets: I've never been married and I have no children. I'm 65 years old, and those are my two biggest regrets. Why? Because I did what I did to myself, and I put myself where I put myself. And now it's too late for all that. But my point being that all the things that I should know, I don't know. So it takes somebody to show me.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to come to prison, I can show you anything you want to see about prison. I can show you how to make it. I can show you everything you want to know about prison. Show me a woman, and I'll be the first one to call Dr. Phil.
Sure. Yeah. No. I get it.
I mean, I have no clue.
Yeah.
But I learn, and she teaches me, and I tell her all the time, and I'm sure you do the same, Mark. Thank you, because this is something that's all foreign to me, and if it wasn't for you explaining it or telling me, then I wouldn't know.
Yeah. No. I was sitting there thinking what I told you earlier too. On this subject, that she can, Marta can be brutally honest. Right? And she says some things sometimes that are like trigger words for somebody that's been out of joining her. Like, I'm going to give you an example. She told me to grow some balls over something, and that's like shit I would fight over. You know? No, really. And that's what, it's like in my brain I'm snapping out. But that's more of an expression in Spain. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, that's what she means. But it's like more of like, grow some balls. You know?
Yeah, right.
People do this every day. Grow some balls. You're not special. I'm like, what the fuck? But. Anyway,
the one I heard was always "buck up, little camper."
No. Grow some balls. So to bring it back around to full circle to probation and parole, I will say this about a relationship or family contact, whatever. The parole board. Some would think that people that do get into relationships, especially if they have a long-term sentence in prison relationship, that judges or parole boards would frown on it. And I've actually found the opposite in my case. For example, my judge brought up the fact that I got into relationships to show rehabilitation on my part. And there was truth to that. Just didn't know about the depression part, but so there it is to have. It means a lot to have a support group when you're in prison.
Because like I said, if I hadn't met, like I had you and I've got David. Now David just moved to Fayetteville.
Sure.
So now, basically, after 40 years in prison, one of my major stability people is gone.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay. But the thing is, the coping skills that we learned in prison, if you can survive in prison, you can survive out here.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, if you stop and look at the fact that what is it? 1% of America's population is in prison.
I'm not sure.
It's something like that. It's like 1% of the total population of North America are prisoners. Because there's like 350 million people, and there's like, I don't know, 3 point some million or whatever in prison, whatever it may be. But the point fluctuates back to this. If there's 1% of the population that's in prison, that means the other 99% can obey the law.
Or just not getting caught.
Well, either way.
Or they're part of the law and they're crooked. Right?
Well, yeah,
that's like 15% of the population.
But what I'm saying, the vast majority can stay out. So now all that does is just lets me know that it's my thinking that's messed up. It's not the judge shouldn't have sentenced me so much, or my attorney sold me out, or this or that. No, the bottom line is I wouldn't have been in prison if I hadn't been out there acting foolish.
Sure, and I agree. We put ourselves there, right? The only thing that can't get my head wrapped around, and I don't know how to figure it out, is just criminal justice in the United States in general. There's just my friend Brent says work within the system. That system needs to be blown up. I mean, but I don't know how you ever fix it, especially with our culture.
I think the only way to fix it is like this. If anybody is out there watching this, listening to his voice, listening to my voice, let me tell you one thing. If you have any kind of clout, if you care anything about what's being done wrong, then let's try to get on the page and do what's right. We're doing our part. We're putting this information out there to everybody. Here it is. Take it. Take it all.
And I can't repeat enough. It doesn't matter. So I'm not trying to bring this up multiple times. I have. So there's a senior government official that I have to talk to sometimes, or that's my guy's boss, that said, basically that I'm glamorizing prison life through this stuff, and maybe I'm like have one foot in criminal world, one foot out. And I get what he was saying because he really doesn't know me. But I'm not putting him down. My point is this. It doesn't matter. Let's say I'm glamorizing. Let's say I'm actually promoting gangs in some of my videos, right? Let's say I'm glorifying them, right? There's still learning lessons in there, because people that have clout, that no politician should sit there and go, what the fuck is going on? If this guy can glamorize and talk about prison being so fun, so I can't say this enough. There's people should be appalled by some of the videos I put out. Even if I'm laughing, they should be pissed off. Taxpayer money. All you're doing is putting people away in prison and not rehabilitating them properly. Look at the recidivism rate, and just in general, it's not about crime and punishment. And I'm sorry, judges that don't believe that. And I'm sorry, federal judges that actually sends people and say, we're going to put you in federal prison or prison in general. That way you can get some treatment. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. I've read some transcripts. I've read many transcripts where judges say that. It's not like that. I mean, person has to take the initiative for themselves, but it's not like that. It's hard when your environment is like it is, when everybody's fucked up on K2. It's hard when gangs are thriving. It's just very difficult. And it's hard when staff commit crimes. And let me say this before we get off this. Staff commit crimes on a daily basis. I know in the Federal Bureau of Prison, through paperwork, through falsifying paperwork.
Falsifying documents.
Exactly. Whether it's for separations, whether it's for writing disciplinary report, every day in every prison that I know of in the federal, and I will tell you this, I'm talking about the Federal Bureau of Prisons, he can speak on Arkansas. Every day in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, there's crime being committed by staff in every single prison. Every single prison. They don't consider it a crime. They're just, it doesn't matter if I'm putting a separation on you and you. They did it to me. I talk about Joey Tess, this big mob figure. They put a separation on me. They had him lie, and then they wouldn't take it off. You know what I mean? They falsified a document to keep me off a compound. It's just bullshit.
They will do that in a heartbeat. They will, and here's the way they'll do it. They won't do it. They won't falsify nothing. What they'll do is they'll order one of us inmate clerks to do it.
Well, they don't have inmate clerks in the feds.
Yeah, but here, that's the way they do it.
Yeah, right.
So Candace,
no, they're falsifying documents in the feds.
Do this.
Yeah.
I falsify.
As a matter of fact, it's okay. We just ate lost spaghetti.
Yeah.
I'm burping farming now. So, real quick, I'm going to do a video and I'm going to show you actual crimes committed by staff. I'm going to probably block the names out because I'm not trying to get staff. I've got paper documents that show falsification. I have them. Matter of fact, I sent them to my judge, straight up. So, but that's another issue.
Yeah. Before, there was one thing that I was going to say earlier when I was talking about. Oh crap! I just lost my whole train of thought. That's all right. Man, go ahead. It'll come back to me in a minute.
I forgot. We went off. I was starting on parole, but I got to retitle this something else.
Oh yeah, it was about parole, wasn't it?
It's all right.
When I was telling you about somebody earlier, and I got off track about it. Now I know what I was gonna.
Was it a parole issue?
Yeah, it was about, we were talking about parole, and I had something in mind, and I started saying something about it, and then I just got all the way off track. But anyways, the whole point is this. Like I say, we're doing our part. We're putting it out there. If you know somebody that's got some clout, direct them to these channels.
Yeah. There's a bunch of prison channels.
You can find our names. If you want to talk to us, we'll talk to you. We're not going to lie to you.
ConvictInc.net for legal work.
Yeah, I mean.
Even on probation and parole, I can send it to him in Arkansas.
Yeah,
if you need
it's
reconsiderations.
Yeah, reconsideration.
Oh, by the way, Steve, that was his hustle in prison, right?
Yes.
So guys that got knocked down by the parole board, he did reconsiderations. And he was pretty successsucess.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
I had over a 50%. Guys that got denied by the parole board, I had over a 50% success rate. I'm getting them back up before the board to at least getting the board to hear their story.
Yeah, what happened after then would be up to them.
Right.
Also, so if you are in the ADC and you need help, you can contact me through convictinc.net, and I will get it to him for reconsiderations on parole denials. Or before they go up for the parole board, there's letters that can be done. There's stuff that can be written out. They don't like that. They don't like it, but it's your right, and you can actually write down what you need to say for the parole boards. And that goes across the United States.
And here's something. Never, ever, ever doubt the power of clergy.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a church that your mama goes to or your grandmother goes to, write out a letter. Draft out a letter.
It's true.
Send it out there as a petition. Get people to sign it so that when you go to the parole board, this will be in the parole board's hands and they can see that, oh, here's 50 people from this church saying that if this guy comes out and goes there, that they'll look out for him, they'll help him.
And especially if it's coming from the clergy, if it's coming from the chief or the priest or whoever, the deacon, whoever's running the church.
Exactly.
It's actually coming, if you can make an argument, it's coming from God because they work for God. So God's asking you to get out.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm being funny, but you know what I mean.
But it's true.
No, it's true. But clergy, I know that first. I actually know that firsthand. That helps.
Clergy helps.
Yeah.
If you can find any kind of person that's a community leader, any kind of business owner, anybody that
letters matter.
Letters matter.
Letters matter, especially people in positions of power, influence, positive influence.
And don't think that letters you can say, well, my mom and daddy are coming to the board with me. Still send a letter.
That's right.
Still send the letter.
It's part of record. The whole thing is to build the record.
Yes.
And you want to build it for appeal or reconsideration in the event it falls through.
Like I said, speaking of parole, him and I were talking earlier, and the one thing that you always want to remember on a reconsideration is this. When you get your results, they don't follow their own policy. Their policy says that if they deny you parole for one reason, let's say poor institutional adjustment, by their policy, they're not supposed to ever be able to use that again
That's
against
right.
you.
So that they can never use that against you again. It's a one-time deal.
But they do.
Yes.
They do. They'll use it every time. And their three favorite are age of the victim,
Yeah. Seriousness of the crime.
serious nature of the crime,
yeah.
and poor institutional
Yeah. That's
adjustment.
the three big ones.
Those
And they
are-
can only use those once.
But if you don't know, that's why the little nuances that I knew made me so good at this. If you don't know that and you don't tell them that and show them the error of their ways, they won't change. But if you prove it to them and say, parole board policy, page 2, subsection 3, paragraph 4, line 5 says this.
And here's a copy.
Then you don't have to worry about it because they know.
Yeah.
And they would rather then say, well, hey, this guy's on to this. Let's let him go, and that way we don't have to worry about him. And we'll just tell him, say, if you know what's good for you, keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Happens more than you'll ever know.
Yeah.
More than you'll ever know.
All right, I'm going to shut this video off. Maybe we'll do another one, maybe not. We'll figure it out.
All right.
I've got to get the air back on. It just came on. I raised it so it wouldn't be loud.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Bye.